Hello and welcome to our first cook along series of the videos of these dishes. Today we are going to do a plant-based twist on one of the traditional winter recipes of a shepherd's pie. Yeah, for this it is plant-based today, but you can actually do it with substituting with meat, minced meat and everything else as well. So we're going to look at preparing our vegetables first. It's very, very important that we get everything prepared first. Obviously this is a quick and easy recipe because of all of the busy lifestyles and that, we need to be able to get everything done as quickly as possible in the kitchens so that we can actually sit down and enjoy the food that we cook. So hopefully it'll be a happy experience. So the first thing we need to do is to prepare some of the onions. So I'm going to show you how to prepare an onion. So I'm going to take the top off, cutting down to the board for safety, and cut the little bit of root off there. We don't want to cut too much because we waste the onion. It's very important to have a waste bowl as well, so that we can put our waste into the bowl to keep our area clean and tidy and organised. So thinking of safety, always never cut in your hands, always cut down to the board. I'm just going to peel this off. Use a little knife just to flick up the skin. It's nice and clean and tidy then for us to cut onto the board. So I'm going to show you two cuts. One's the claw, one's the bridge. So for the onion today, I'm going to use the claw first. I'm going to turn it on the cut side so it doesn't wobble, because it's pretty wobbly on there. So for safety, put on the cut side, make a bridge, and then we just cut down towards the board and cut the onion in half right through the root. So we're going to chop this up now. So using the claw, make sure you get your hands like that onto the onion, and we cut down. Now the thinner you cut it, the finer the dice will be. And then once we've cut all the way down, but not right through the end, we just turn it round and we cut downwards across. And again, the thinner we cut it, the finer the dice. And we just cut around until we're just left with the root, and that can be put into your waste bowl. So we're going to do the carrots next. So with carrots, like a lot of the other root vegetables, like parsnips and things like that, it's not necessarily always to take the skin off. The skin contains flavour, fibre. Potatoes, a lot of the fibre is in the skin as well with those. So we want to keep as much for that, for our dietary requirements really, and our healthy living and digestion that. So I'm literally just going to take the tops and the tails off. Okay. So again, it's like a little adapted claw. I'm just taking the top off there, top off there, top off there, top off there. Obviously, I've pre-washed these vegetables to make them nice and clean before we started cooking. So I'm just going to cut it in half to make it a little bit more manageable. And if they're too long, you can cut it further down. So we're going to now put these into a dice. So with that, again, adapted claw, we go down one side just to make it from rocking. So we can chop those up. And then we can, again, a nice claw technique. And all these little techniques that I'm showing you today can be used in other recipes in the series. And it's fun to do this with the kids as well. Get involved, all the family involved. It's a nice little way of spending time as a family making a dish, makes prepping it quicker as well. And it's a bit rewarding to eat what you spent time cooking. So I'm going to move on to the swede now. So swede, we got to peel. It's quite tough, but we got to do it safely. So the best way to do it is, obviously they've got a flat side, so the best way to actually do it is to just follow the curve of the vegetable. So we literally just with a knife. If you're not comfortable with a knife though, you could use a peeler to peel it off as well, but the skin is quite tough for a peeler to go through. But you can peel it if you've got a strong enough peeler. But this one I'm going to do with a knife. All waste into the bowl as normal. Again, you can see I'm using the claw technique just to steady that vegetable onto the board. I've just turned it over just to take the bits of skin off at the top. So adapting the claw method again, just take that little bit of dried top and bottom off. And now I'm going to cut into strips and dice. So claw technique, cut down. Then after you've done a couple of slices, you can turn it onto the more larger flat side and you can cut down, which is a bit easier then. Once you've got those cut into slices, we can then turn it into the dice. So it's just cutting strips. Again, claw technique. The claw technique is probably the most used technique. Don't worry about getting it too precise, as long as it's roughly the same size, so it cooks all at the same time. But we're not going to measure it and get a ruler out to make sure they're perfectly square. So this is what a sweet potato looks like. Again, it's one of those vegetables that you need to peel on this occasion. So I'm going to peel this into my waste bowl to save it getting messy. And it is a bit tough, so persevere. And like I said, you know, it's not necessarily a race, it's just about getting it all prepared. And if you've got the children helping you as well, you can set one of them on the peeling while you're chopping and getting everything put together. And then, like I said, sit down at the end of the day as a family and enjoy the meal that you've prepared together as a family. And it's very sociable cooking and eating, and it's that family time when you can all sit down and discuss what's happened in the day and what's going on next day, and you know, just have that little bit of family time that we seem to lose. So again, back to the claw grip. This is a bit easier, as you can see. It goes through, the knife goes through this really easy. It's not as hard as the swede. So for easiness, I've just turned the potato around, and rather than removing the slices of this, I'm keeping them together with a claw grip because it helps me cut the very thin side. It's just a bit safer. So this one I don't have to be too precise with. This is going to be the mash, so I can actually cut this in larger dice. So we do this nice and quickly, and we can get on then from doing the prep to moving on to the cooking stage in a few moments. So I've already done the rest of the potatoes pre-prepared, so you can see that'll be ready for the mash. So that's our preparation done. So we're going to now move on to the cooking stage. So now we've got all the preparation done of the vegetables. One of the things I will mention is, obviously we had a waste bowl with all our peelings and everything in. If you've got one of the local council's food bins, put it in there, that's great. or even better, if you actually invested into a little compost bin, it's great for doing into the compost, just so that is saving the environment a bit and everything else. So what we're going to do now, we're moving on to the cooking, but because we're cooking, I'm in an industrial kitchen today, we've had to have the fans on to take the heat out, so there's a little bit more noise going on while we're cooking. So we'll move on to the cooking now. So the first thing we need to do is warm our pan up. I've got it on a low heat just to start. We're going to add some rapeseed oil. All right, rapeseed oil is really, really good. It's got a high smoking point, so it means that you can actually take the heat in the pan higher, and it's good for stir frying and all the other things that we do where it needs a lot of heat in the pan. So obviously this is plant-based today, but if you were to have a minced meat or a turkey mince or something like that, you'd actually fry the meat first. You wouldn't need as much oil either because of the natural oils in the meat as well. Very important, turkey is really lean. If you're doing minced beef, you can get a lean minced beef, which is about 5 to 10% fat content. So first of all, 2 spoons of oil goes into our pan, and we want to just get that to come up to heat a little bit. So that's the importance of having the oil hot, is that when the ingredients go in, it starts to cook and seal and get all those flavors going. If you were to put it into cold oil, the ingredients would absorb the oil and it'd be a bit greasy and not as pleasant tasting. So I'm just going to turn it up to a medium heat now. Always be careful with oil in pans. You can't put oil with a pan on the heat and walk away, because it will smoke and eventually it will burst into flames for safety reasons. As soon as you've got the oil in, keep an eye on it. Be constantly present over that pan. So I've just coated the bottom of the pan with the oil, and I'm now looking at it, and you can always tell when oil is hot enough. If you look at a reflection of a light in your kitchen, you can see the oil shimmering and sort of like moving, so you'll know. The other way to test it, to see that it's hot enough, is you take a little bit of onion and you drop it in and you see if it sizzles. Now I can hear it sizzling, so I know that's ready. So I'm going to put my onion in, and you'll hear a big sizzle when all of it goes in. So I'm just going to give it a quick stir. I'm now going to add my teaspoon of garlic. I've got the ready prepared crushed. Sometimes it's called lazy garlic on the label in the supermarkets. Nothing wrong with that, it's time saving. So I'm just going to stir this around, and what we call saute is a technical term, but it's just frying it quickly in the oil. And we want to cook this for about sort of 5 to 10 minutes. The key we look for when the onions are cooking is that they go a little bit transparent, and hopefully you're getting nice and hungry while you're cooking. If you get hungry while you're cooking, you normally enjoy the food more. So while this is cooking as well, on the back of the oven, I've already put my sweet potatoes into the water, and I'm boiling that up. And I've just got it down on a simmer now, it's come to a boil. And my potatoes are then just cooking ready, nice and steady, to make the mash. Onions are virtually ready now. So I'm going to add my swede and my carrots. Don't forget this is half the swede, not the full swede. Give that a stir. Now at this stage, because obviously it's vegetable based, I've added all that extra vegetables. I'm just going to add an extra spoonful of oil just to help with the cooking. So again, what I'm looking for when I'm cooking is that the swede, when you saw it on the bench, is quite a white colour. The carrots obviously was an orange colour, but when they cook, the swede goes a bit more yellow in colour, and the carrot seems to go more orange, deeper orangey red, and that will indicate then that the vegetables is starting to cook. So when you cook, you do use your eyes quite a lot, as well as your other senses, just to see and help to identify when vegetables are cooking in this case. So you can see that the vegetables now are looking brighter in colour, so I know they're starting to cook, and this is the right time now to add the lentils. So I'm just going to put it onto a low heat for the moment so it doesn't burn. I'm going to add my lentils. I find it really important to always give a stir after every addition of ingredients so that it's all evenly mixed in. Then we go tomato puree. So I'm going to add a spoon of tomato puree. If you find that it's not enough tomato puree, you can always add a little bit more. The thing with tomato puree is it is quite concentrated, so there's a lot that can taste quite acidy. So it's there for additional flavour, but don't overdo the tomato paste. I'm going to add a little bit more on this occasion. I can see the tomato paste is now virtually had a very thin coating on all the vegetables, which is quite nice. You can smell it in there as well, so I know I've got enough. So, can of chopped tomatoes. That goes in. Again, give that a little stir, get that all nicely mixed, so it's nice and even. Oh, I wish you could smell it. It's smelling lovely now. Making me hungry. And then I'm going to add my stock, which I've already dissolved in hot water. Again, I add it a little bit at a time, just to make it easier to incorporate. Sometimes if you add it all at once, then all the liquid's at the top and it's hard to stir in, it splashes everywhere. So I'll just add a little bit, make sure it's all mixed, and then just gradually keep on adding the stock until all the stock is in the pan. So at this stage it's important now, like I said, I had it on a low medium heat, so I'm going to turn the heat up now to return it to the boil, to get the heat into the pan so it can start cooking. And then once it comes up to the boil, it'll only take a minute or so. When it's come up to the boil, then I must then turn it down and let it simmer on a medium heat, just so it has enough time for the lentils to cook and all the other vegetables to cook and absorb all the flavours. So that's come up to a boil now. I said it didn't take long. I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. So I'm going to leave that settle now for 30 minutes and leave that cook, and I'm going to stir occasionally through that cooking process so it's not all stuck to the bottom. And like I said, my mash is cooking now, which that will take about 25 minutes to cook so it's nice and soft for that to be mash. And then once they're cooked, we can then put it together in a dish ready for baking. So I've just come in over here. This is simmering nicely. It's been about 15 minutes now. Obviously, just a reminder to just keep the liquid content an eye on it so it doesn't go too dry. If you do need to add that little bit extra stock, or just need a little bit extra water just to keep it moist so that the lentils can cook thoroughly and swell nicely, then that's fine. All right, so just keep an eye on the liquid content. So we're going to now go on to the mash, because the mash is now ready. Okay, so thing with sweet potato, and one of the benefits of it over normal potatoes is that you don't have to add any butter because it's naturally creamy. So I'm just going to put it onto the work surface. If you haven't got a stainless steel bench and you're worried about burning a formica or top or whatever you've got at home, then you can use a tea towel, fold it up, have it a little bit damp, and you can stand the pan on that, and that will stop it burning or messing up or melting your work surfaces. So I'm literally just going to use the normal masher, and I'm just going to mash down onto the sweet potato and just make it all nice and creamy. So this is nearly all mashed through and all the lumps are out of it. So you can see it looks nice and mashed. So I'm just literally going to whip it now using the masher. This builds a bit of muscle in your arms, so a good workout, say if you're going to the gym. So you can now see it's got that little bit smoother, a little bit creamier texture to it after whipping it. Okay, so now we'll come to the point when our lentils and the main part of the dish is now cooked. So we're going to demold this into a dish now. So I'm just using a normal bulk standard everyday casserole dish. Yeah, this is an old-fashioned Pyrex one, whatever you've got lying around, as long as it's oven proof. That's the main thing that you've got to remember. So our lentil filling is now cooked. So we just got to put that. You can see all the nice colours and how lovely it looks. So you want to leave enough room to have the topping on as well. So I'll put another little bit of spoon. So you can either do it as a big dish like this, or if you've got little individual ones that you want to do little individual shepherd's pie with, you can put them into individual ones. The beauty of this as well is that if you've got any spare, you can put it into a plastic container and freeze it for another day, and you can bring it out and do it. So a bit of prep if you want to save time in the future as well. So that's enough filling for this. And what we want to do now is to leave this to cool and just set it aside so it firms up before we put the mash on, because it is quite soft. If I put the mash on now, it'll all move and everything. So we're just going to let that chill and cool down naturally for it to be able to put the mash on. So the base now for the shepherd's pie has cooled. So it's time now to top it with that lovely mash that we've made and mashed up earlier. So I'm just going to literally spoon this right onto the top. I don't want to push down too hard or try and push it over in case I move the base. So I am literally just gently easing it on, and then I can finish it off properly in a minute. Sometimes you might want the rustic look. It's quite nice to be rustic. Nothing ever has to be too neat at times when you're cooking. So just going to make sure that it's all nicely around the outside edge, so that when it's in the oven it doesn't boil up over the top, so it seals in like a little crust. It's a nice bright colour, it looks colourful. You could, if you want, get a fork and make ridges in it if you wanted to put a pattern into it, but we're going to put cheese on it anyway, and that's going to melt and forms a nice little bit of a glazed crust to it. Of course, it's up to you how much cheese you want on, depending on how much you like cheese. but that will be enough for this because I don't want it oozing over and boiling down the side. So top with cheese, that's finished, and this is now ready to go into the oven and be baked at 180 degrees centigrade for 20 minutes. So this has now been baking for 20 minutes, and you can see it's come out really nice and golden on top, piping hot. So this is now ready to be served.